Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. It is about as far as you can get from NHL hockey in either direction. You have about a month and a half that we've gone away from the Cup Finals, and you have about a month and a half until meaningful hockey, really closer to 2 months until meaningful hockey gets played again in the NHL. So we're deep into offseason at this point. But look, we figured it was a good time to get our bearings a little bit heading into next season. I don't think we'll get into too many serious conversations, deep diving expectations or anything, but you got to have a feeling for what's to come in the NHL, what's to come for the Avs and otherwise. I wanted to start this conversation with this, AJ. Over the last 2 years, we've seen a significant uptick in goals in the NHL and offensive production in general. Is this sustainable? Can we start to expect the NHL to produce like this heading into another season and going forward? Or will we see the revenge of goalies and defense?
I mean, we've talked about this a little bit before, but everything is cyclical. So there will be a point in time, probably not too far away, where some of these scoring numbers do start to come down a little bit. But I think the scoring environment it's a little in the extreme right now. Like it's closer to the 80s than the 90s, But it's really not. I really don't think it's like a major. Like it's not so far removed from the norms. What we were going through, like when Jamie Benn won the Art Ross and stuff, like that
way
was
too far in the wrong direction. Yeah,
exactly that was the extreme in a low scoring environment where we were looking at even being a point per game player was a serious accomplishment.
Yeah.
We looked at point per game players the way that we now look at 100-point players.
Yep.
Or used to look at 100-point players.
Turning into 115 really fast.
Yeah, exactly. Like there is there is something to be said for the scoring environment being a little out of whack right now, just in that like you're like, look, when you have like 1,300-point scores or something,
Yeah.
like it's gotten to be a bit much, where you're okay, like you've got a 100-point score, yeah, who doesn't, um but it's so I do think that the league is in for a small correction there, but you also look at the environment where there's more emphasis on skill,
Yeah,
and less on size than maybe there ever has been in the NHL. And I think the Cale Makars, Adam Fox's, Quinn Hughes of the world are driving a lot of this because offensive defensemen are more in vogue than ever. You have guys that are you have teams that are actively seeking puck skill more than trying to go out and find maulers on the back end. And I think that will contribute to, guys that don't play necessarily like elite defense in their own zone. And I think that will play some kind of role in the scoring continuing to be up, where that trade-off,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, that trade-off is something that teams are increasingly willing to live with, because offense is pretty important, and so obviously so is defense. But it is an environment where we talk about during the season all the time. It's a 3-goal league. First to 3 often wins in the NHL, and we just came off of a season where multi-goal comebacks were way too common.
Too commonplace, yeah. 2-goal
So
leads have never felt less safe.
Right, and is the response to more multi-goal leads being blown to increase the prevention of goals and try and change it to defense, or is the response trying to get a 3-goal lead instead?
Both.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you'd like to be ahead 4-1 and not 3-1 going into a third period, but still,
Es-
I think that I think some of that is still going to play a factor in the numbers being in the neighborhood of where they are. But I do expect like maybe
Kind. Maybe
a
McDavid
small
doesn't
drop
put
off
up
a little.
150, only 130 next season.
Yeah, like where your top 5 scorers are in like more of the 110 point range,
Sure.
where and you only have, let's say 5 to 8 100-point scores. Like a small dip here, not saying that it's going to, it's going to be a collapse of offense or anything, because I think that would surprise me.
I'd be shocked to see it go back to anywhere near the 90s. And you mentioned the Jamie Benn era, what, half a decade ago? I guess it's more than that now. But anyway,
Yeah.
The other side of this, and I know you've talked about this a lot recently, where the statistics point towards the impact of offensive players, or at least those that drive offense, being more impactful than defensive players.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of has led me to this idea of we sort of need to change what we understand as a defensive player, where an effective defensive player is one that forces the change of possession of the puck. More so than a player who blocks a lot of shots or is physical
Mm-hmm.
in the corners. And like, obviously, take that with a grain of salt. Turnover statistics in the NHL are borderline meaningless because of how they're tracked. But
Yeah, I think between rink bias and everything else, anybody that tries to use giveaways and takeaways as a meaningful stat is wasting their time. That is
ag-
it's plus minus. I mean, it's total. Just ignore it. It doesn't mean anything.
I agree. But the concept of defensive players recouping the puck, getting the play going the right direction,
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of lump it in with driving play, but often I take a look at Logan O'Connor on a penalty kill. Some of the reasons he's so successful and surprisingly productive on the penalty kill is because of his ability to take the puck away from the other team, not just to prevent them from scoring.
Yeah, and what you're what you're getting into there is being an effective PK guy. Specifically speaking to this situation and Logan O'Connor, part of what makes him effective is not just that he wins the puck, but that he takes it out of his zone and puts it in the other zone
Yeah.
and kills time there. And even if you're at even strength and that's what you're doing, when you're talking about being a depth guy and being a good defensive player, that's what you want. When you mention guys that block a lot of shots, if you have to block a shot, you have failed at your first tenet of defense, which is to get the puck back.
Yeah.
Allowing shots means that you have failed in some regard in that aspect. You haven't taken the puck from them. They are taking a shot. Now, blocking a shot is better than not blocking a shot most of the time. Every time that there's a guy that goes to block a shot and it like caroms off his skate and goes in, you're like, just get out of the way, let the goalie do his job. But then we get mad at guys for not blocking shots. So, you can't win in the world. But I do think it is an interesting like philosophical conversation of what is an effective defensive player. And I
Sure.
think Logan O'Connor is a really good example of this because he has turned himself into one of the better depth wings in the NHL on the defensive side of the puck,
Yeah.
where very little bad happens when he's out there. Um, and part of that is his personal ability to be able to win pucks, and his speed stresses defenses, and anybody that does any kind of a pre-scout will know if you're a defenseman, you cannot try and hold the blue line against Logan O'Connor because that guy will get a breakaway that will turn into a defensive zone faceoff. So, you can't.
It's a little bit of a compliment sandwich there.
Yes, exactly. It's like how that's going to go, but they lose that offensive possession.
Yeah.
And that's what makes LOC so good at what he does. Is he wins pucks before they often have chances to do anything with it. And I think that's what makes the Avs kind of mixture of things as good as it is because they do value the skating of guys to such a level that it's not just that they take a puck away, it's that they can turn it into offense against other teams as
Sure.
quickly as they can. And that's kind of, for me, that's Colorado's secret sauce. That's what separates them from other good defensive teams is the way that they get into transition. And we know that in transition, defending in transition is very hard. You have maybe 3 seconds to sort out your entire defense. If you're lucky, 3 seconds to sort out your entire defense coming down the ice. Everybody needs to be able to, all 5 guys need to be able to pick up a guy going down the ice and figure out where they need to be going. It's really hard to do. It's why transition scoring is higher than in zone scoring. And Colorado does that really well, and it starts with guys that play quality defense that you're talking about, guys
Yeah.
that win pucks.
Well, and you look at it on your back end. Obviously, you mentioned the skating, but particularly with the Avs defensemen, it's their ability to break the puck out via pass as well. You look at their top 4, and all 4 of them can do it both with their feet and with their vision and passing. And it's why the Avs have become such a dominant possession team over the last handful of years. When they're able to do it multiple ways, do it quickly, and do it constantly, that is, go the right direction with the puck, it just buries teams.
It does, and I think that's why you saw why Lars Eller was such an awkward fit in
Sure.
Colorado. And I like ultimately the Lars Eller experiment failed, but also it's always going to annoy me that we talk about it in those terms because everything around him was so messed up that he never really got a chance to do the job he was brought in to do.
It the end of the regular
But yeah,
season was really fine. Like
yeah,
it was working more or less, but then obviously the playoffs happened and he was playing 2C and that was just never going to work. So
yeah, definitely. It definitely got off the rails there. It was a bummer that it did not go that way.
yeah,
But also, I think that experience, just because we're in this room and we're kind of in a freewheeling show today, I think that experience with Lars Eller was also very instructive for the Avs because I think that they looked at, okay, we got a defense first guy in kind of our 3C, and we had a really hard time generating offense. So
yeah.
what do they go out and get? What do they have on opening night this year?
2 dudes that can
It's
play offense and fly.
Well, it's very, very likely that they have Ross Colton as their 3C,
Sure.
who anybody that's familiar with our show and anybody that's ever looked at a player card on the internet will tell you that Ross Colton is a play driver, not a play preventer. And so they went with the, hey, we're looking for depth scoring. Well, we're going to go get a guy that drives the hell out of play.
And with Colton specifically, it's not just driving the play. Arguably the most efficient middle 6 goal scorer in the league as far as like chances to goals. And
Certainly one of them.
it's a direct answer to a middle 6 that completely forgot how to score goals when the Avs needed it most.
Yeah, and it was a middle 6 that got. I mean, we've
Again,
talked
yeah,
about this a
there's
lot over the
context, of
summer, but
course.
a middle 6 that got exposed because a lot of those guys were playing up. You mentioned Lars Eller as a 2C.
Yeah.
JT Compher has never been a second liner in his life, and owes maybe a million or two, maybe $1.5 million to Mikko Rantanen for helping
Yeah.
boost the regular season numbers to the point where he got paid a pretty hefty price. Um, so I think that those guys, you look at last year and you see a lot of guys that were miscast by the end
Yeah.
of the season. But Dennis Malgin is in your top 6. Like, well, we need offense, so we're playing Dennis Malgin, and you're looking at like Dennis Malgin's not even in the NHL anymore. Like that guy's gone.
Yep.
So and he was a really fringe guy anyway, who had a couple of good, a good month
Yeah.
or
A
two with the
hot month.
Avs.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But when push came to shove, you saw the limitations in
Yep.
a hurry. And so that's where I think the Avs obviously were the problem is that they're not deep. That they don't have, if they have two top six injuries, they're in real trouble. But I say this a lot. How many teams can truly sustain those
Yeah.
types of injuries to their best players and and just be like, oh, it's fine. The Seattles of the world are more rare, where they aren't as reliant on those guys. That they are a true by committee kind of club.
The I think the reality of those teams are, well, their top six isn't that good.
Yeah, and just using the Seattle example, Jared McCann scoring 40 goals feels like unlikely. He'll
Yep.
probably be I feel pretty comfortable saying he's going to be a 25-ish goal guy again.
I'll give him
Maybe
30
maybe a little
even.
bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could totally see a 30. It's wouldn't be surprising. And Burakovsky, Eberle, Bjorkstrand, like those, they've got good goal scorers there, but it really helped them a lot that they had a guy absolutely go off.
Yep.
And one of the nice things about building by committee like that is uh, every year they could see a different guy do that, and so it doesn't really matter if Jared McCann doesn't do it this year. Maybe it's Berkey that does it.
Yep.
Maybe it's Bjorkstrand that does it. They're always going to have those options. Of course, if none of them do, they probably miss the playoffs.
Yeah. That's the reality of that knife's edge, where you don't have those high end talents that you can rely on a year in, year out to carry you.
Definitely.
I am going to be relying on Factor meal kits to carry me through the back half of this week because the wife's going on vacation. So I'm going to be here. If you
Oh
don't know this
God.
about me, I can't cook. So
The last time she went on vacation, you fell apart.
yeah, we've got to hold it together this time. We'll see how it goes. But Factor will help with that because I can make myself meals in just 2 minutes with Factor's meal kit. They have all sorts of amazing stuff, ranging from filet mignons to I'm a meat eater. I won't lie to you, but if you're into vegetarian, vegan options, they have stuff like that for you as well. Again, just 2 minutes. You can pop it in the microwave. You can have it ready to go. Perfect for lunch, if you ask me. And I know there's a lot of microwave meals that get a bad rap. I was not expecting a lot out of Factor, given that it was microwave meals, and it really surprised me how good everything tasted from Factor. It was actual having a real proper meal. So I really got to give them a lot of credit for making tasty quality stuff. Again, super easy to use. Tons of different options for meals all over the place. If you're on a diet or something like that, they of course have calorie conscious options too. You just got to go check them out. Get whatever it is that suits your fancy. They're America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit and can help fuel you up fast with flavorful and nutritious meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track to reaching whatever it is that your goals might be. Head to factormeals.com/DNVRAvs50 today. You can also use the code DNVRAvs50 to get 50% off. Again, that is factormeals.com/DNVRAvs50 or use the DNVRAvs50 code to get 50% off when you order Factor today. Also brought to you by the folks over at Bet365. You can go get your gambling on with them when you head over to Bet365 right now and you deposit $10 with the code DNVR365 and then make a $1 bet. You get $200 in free bets to play with. So get over there, use the DNVR365 code, make whatever bet you feel is a good one, whatever suits your fancy at Bet365, which they have everything. I think I've said this before. Personally, I'm in love with their esports betting. It's really, really good. They have lots of options that you can bet on as far as esports are concerned. You can bet on all sorts of cool stuff, though, if you go over with Bet365. Particularly, one of the things they do best is their in-game bet boosts. No matter what game is going on, they'll have a little boost bet for you ready to go that you can just click on. You don't have to think about it too much. You'll get some good odds. You can fire it off and enjoy whatever sport it is you're watching. I'm actually super excited. I've been watching some Olympic qualifier sports things lately. Can't wait to be able to bet on the Olympics with Bet365. Still a ways off. You still got a year to go, but it'll be a fun time. either way. I guess there's still, you can still bet. Is what the semifinals are left for Women's World Cup, so you can still get in some betting action on that,
Go Sweden.
even if America's not in. But it works. Head over to Bet365. You can download their app today if you haven't already. Be sure to use the DNVR365 code when you do. Get the parlay bonuses, get all of the good stuff from them, no matter where you go. Yeah, they're dope. Of course, when you use the DNVR365 code at Bet365, you must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER today. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. It's all right. Let me ask you this, AJ.
Do it.
Who is gonna have a better season? I don't need specifics.
Me.
Nathan MacKinnon or Cale Makar?
Cale Makar.
Okay, the cover athlete himself.
He's gonna have his first fully healthy season. He's gonna score 100 points. He's gonna win another Norris and maybe another Conn Smythe.
Ooh. That's a tall ask. I like it. I think McKinnon's getting the Conn Smythe though. Going that way with it.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What if that does happen? Like, what if Makar does win the Norris? He has a 100-point season, and then Nate MacKinnon has a 35-point postseason and wins the Conn Smythe. Who has the better year?
What did MacKinnon do in the regular season?
Let's just assume like a 95 point
100-ish
plus regular season, where it's a pretty standard, like pushes 40 goals, pushes, I don't know, like 60, 70 assists, somewhere in there.
I mean, it's got to be Makar, right? Like,
just because it's harder to have a 100-point season as a defenseman.
Which, funnily enough, it would be 2 years in a row the defenseman has a 100-point season, but we haven't seen
almost
one of those
3. Sorry, Roman Josi.
Yeah. 20. It's been like 25 years since that's happened.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, forwards were having 100-point seasons in the middle of the dead puck era. So I would lean Makar, but it might be like future context would have to tell if we get to 2030 and there's a defenseman having a 100-point season every year. Who knows?
Maybe we look back and be like, it actually wasn't that impressive. It was just the start of a different life. No, I mean, I just think that's interesting. Like, if MacKinnon goes on, because 35 points in the postseason would be
pretty outrageous. Yeah,
a lot.
How many games do they play in that postseason? I guess.
Let's say 23 or 24.
Yeah, then 35 is a lot.
I mean, this last one, Makar had 29 and 20, I think. So,
which is a lot.
Yeah, he would have been like right in that 35 range had they just lost a few more games.
Yep.
Maybe he could have pushed 40 if a few of those losses had come against Edmonton.
Yeah, no kidding. That was a high score.
It was such a high-scoring series. Yeah, it was a lot.
Might need a little bit of help in that department to get to 35 and 20 something.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about that a little bit in the West.
Yeah.
Is the West going to be that high scoring again? I think we've talked about at least the Central Division. You kind of have Ottinger, who didn't look amazing in the playoffs last year. You have Hellebuck for now, but how long is he going to stay in division? And then you kind of have Georgiev and a bunch of guys as the goaltenders in the rest of the league. You look at the defenses, you're doing better than maybe in Edmonton or something like that. But particularly when you look at teams like Chicago and Arizona, who their competitive level should be up. They shouldn't be free outs like they kind of were last season.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Central going to be a scoring bonanza, or will teams figure out ways to lock it down?
I think the Central, when you look at the Central, the really good offensive teams, Colorado and Dallas.
For sure.
And then after that, is there another good one? Because Winnipeg and St. Louis, I think, are going to be more middle of the road. I think Arizona will go from bad to probably middle of the road. And then I think Nashville and Chicago are going to struggle. And Minnesota hasn't been a good offensive team in most of
I
its
I think the top
existence.
of Minnesota is pretty decent. It's
I
beyond that.
sure, but I mean, they didn't even score 250 goals as a team last season.
Sure.
Have they taken any meaningful steps forward? Like, I know Kaprizov had some injury issues at the end of the year, but that's also when they were scoring pretty well. Matt Boldy went crazy during that time frame.
Yep.
So, I just don't know that the Central has very many good offensive teams. And some of that might be that they have to play each other, and the goaltending within the division is pretty solid. But I just think more of it is there are two really strong offensive teams in Dallas and Colorado, and
And a
then
bunch of middle.
everybody else has a lot of proving it to do. And some of that I think will also be coaching.
Of course.
I don't think you're ever going to confuse a Rick Bowness team with a high flying team. St. Louis's basically only strength on its roster is its top 9,
Yeah.
and that group gets a year older. They're taking some chances with Kapanen and Verana this year. If those guys don't pan out, they're probably not any good.
Yeah.
Kevin Hayes is maybe their 1C. It's like Kevin Hayes, Braden Shen, and Robert Thomas. Like, which guy is is there a true 1C there? Or are they all just 2Cs going down the lineup?
Yep.
Like, does one of them move to Shen playing more on the wing? Like, how does that how do the Blues can configure themselves? I think they could be a good offensive team. They're the team that I like the most to be a good one. I liked the PLD trade for the Jets, but I don't think that the Jets are that caliber. I don't think they're going to be a top 10 offensive team without some major, Cole
Unless
Perfetti has a 90
yeah,
point
unless Cole
season.
Perfetti's
Like,
super dope.
yeah. Or Gabe Velarde ends up being just as good as PLD was. Like, that some things need to happen for the Jets to get to that level is what I'm saying. So, and that's going into it. I guess I'm just not sold that outside of those two teams, there is a good offensive team. Like there
Okay.
are some that are I would say good, and then I would say pretty solid, and then I would say bad.
So, with that in mind, I think for me, the expectation is the Central Division should be better than the Pacific Division on the whole come next season. Sure, if you want to have Vegas at the top, whatever, fine. If you think Seattle will have a good year, fine. But I look at the divisions as a whole. I think we probably both agree that Arizona and Chicago took steps in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the bottom of the Pacific with San Jose, Anaheim, and you just don't really know what you're going to get out of those organizations right now. Are we back to Thunderdome?
Yeah.
The Central, the place to be?
I don't think so. I mean, you look at the Pacific Division, and remember going into last year, a lot of us were really like if you go rewatch our preseason prediction, we were all over the place on the Pacific Division.
It's
We
true.
weren't entirely sure how to feel about that team or that division at all because the teams were just kind of a big muddled mess. Outside of San Jose and Anaheim at the bottom, has that changed? Do you feel confident? How many of those, I'll ask it this way. How many of those teams do you feel confident they are definitely making the postseason this year?
2.
Which ones?
Vegas and Edmonton.
Are you really that confident in Vegas with rolling the dice with Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson in net? I know we had this exact conversation last year.
Am I confident that they will make the playoffs? Yes.
Okay.
Am
I
I
agree
confident
with
they
you
might
on
go
those two
anywhere?
teams.
No.
I am I agree with you on those two teams and just those two teams. Because between LA, Seattle, Calgary, and Vancouver, I am open to all range of possibilities here. We
Sure.
saw last year Calgary was the big favorite in that division going into the season.
Yep. And it did not go well.
It was a total disaster, but we have talked a lot on this pod about how we thought that it was primarily a coaching problem.
Yep. We're going to find out this year.
Exactly. We're going to get to see, and so that uncertainty, I think, opens me up to the idea that Calgary could end up better than both LA and Seattle.
Yeah.
And I do think they are definitely better than Vancouver. And Vancouver's another team. How do you feel about them? Like, what did they get much
I feel
better?
a lot similar to how I feel about Nashville with Vancouver. Of like, they're stuck in the middle. They really probably should rebuild, but they like aren't fully committing to it. Maybe this year they finally sell off enough pieces that they're done with it, but I don't know. They're a tough spot.
I like the Canucks more than I like the Preds, but I think I agree with you that I would have them as the same general tier of team.
Sure. It's just so hard to dig yourself out of those situations where you're essentially staring down the barrel of a failed era.
I think certainly Nashville more so, just because again they signed we talked about this yesterday, but they went into the offseason.
Nashville tried a lot harder to be good, sure,
and like made some really weird decisions. And if you look at Vancouver, Pettersson is 24, Besser's 26, Kuzmenko's 27, Garland, Beauvillier, like. A lot of these guys are still in their 20s, and their best defenseman is 23.
Yeah.
They paid a high price to see if what Philip Hronek did in Detroit last year was real.
Sustainable, yeah.
Yeah, and went and got my guy Carson Soucy, so obviously they're better. But like I don't think Vancouver's staring down the barrel of a failed era unless Pettersson refuses to sign long term.
Sure.
Then they definitely are. But I'm just kind of like Vancouver's a team where it's like if things go really well for them and they get great goaltending, they could totally make the postseason. Otherwise, I think they're going to be hard pressed too in that division. Seattle, I think, is a team that is about to meet the regression monster.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Does that? I think there's I'll put it this way. I think that there is a better chance that Calgary takes their postseason spot than Seattle repeating what they did.
It's
and then LA I think is a really good hockey team on offense and on defense. And then in net, they rolled the dice with Phoenix Copley and Cam Talbot. And
how many teams have we seen roll the dice with Cam Talbot and it be not such a great decision at this point?
How many teams have made the postseason spending $2.5 million on goaltending?
Must be nice.
It's an interesting decision because it was a pretty robust market this offseason for quality goaltenders.
Yep.
There were guys that they could have gone and gotten, and LA is right up against the cap. They are 100K from the cap with their current roster alignment. Now, you can always send a guy down, but even then, their current roster is only at 21 guys. So they are right there against it. And they better be right about that goaltending situation because they rolled the dice that the final year of Victor Arvidsson's contract was more valuable than trying to get a proven goaltender.
Do you say so?
Victor Arvidsson's a good player
for sure,
but he's 30 years old. He has had a ton of injury issues the last couple of years. And last year he played through that really effectively. But you're also talking about that's like a good top six. He's like a second line guy for you.
Is this just a front office that's comfortable with solving it at the deadline, though? Obviously, they did it last year with Korpisalo, and it went okay.
This is the other thing that I talk about every single deadline. Find me one goaltender that gets acquired at the deadline and goes on a deep run. At the deadline, not a guy that gets acquired in December. At the deadline, because maybe more so than any other position, every year we talk about goaltenders have to adjust when they change locations.
Yeah.
They have to adjust. They have to adjust to how the team plays in front of them. They've got to get the communication down with their defensemen. They've got to get accustomed to a new goaltending coach and how they want to do things. They've got to get accustomed to the systems in front of them and the kind of shots that they're going to be seeing. They have all these things that they have to adjust to, and the deadline is sometimes 17 games from the postseason.
Yep.
That's really hard adjustment to make, and we saw it with Corpus Hollow. Corpus Hollow was terrible in that Edmonton series. Terrible. Like
At the end of it, it was really bad for sure.
He fell apart at the end of the series. Like kind of like the way that we talk about Philip Grubauer in the Vegas series. He got worse as the thing went on.
Yep.
That's a recipe for disaster. You don't want a goalie getting weaker as your series goes on. So it's a big roll of the dice from the Kings. They're taking a huge chance there.
On that note, don't take a huge chance with your daily health routines. Make sure you get AG1 while you're still kicking. I don't know where that was going.
Nice.
Check them out. AG1, a fantastic product, has 75 different vitamins and minerals in it, a bunch of adaptogens, probiotics, all that good stuff. It's part of your daily routine. Just one scoop of water, one scoop in a cup of water, rather, every day. You can do it in the morning, evening, whenever you feel like it. It works out. Tons of athletes use it as part of their workout routines. It helps boost your immune system. Tons of great stuff all over the place. So go check it out if you haven't yet. I know a lot of people that really do love it as part of their health routines. You can go to drinkag1.com/avalanche today to order. And when you do, you get a year's supply of vitamin D and 5 AG1 travel packs completely for free with your purchase. So jump on it. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 by going to drinkag1.com/avalanche today. Also, brought to you by the folks over at Bacchus and Shanker. If you've been hurt by a goaltender or goaltending situation and you're not at fault, you can call 222-2222 today. But seriously, if you've been in a car accident or if you had an injury at work or if something horrible went wrong and it was not your fault, you can call the 2 number, go to coloradolaw.net. Bacchus and Shanker will give you a free consultation. And if they think you have a case, they will take it on completely for free. You pay nothing until you win your case. They just want to get you what you deserve. So hit up Bacchus and Shanker. Make sure you're getting it. Again, the 2 number or coloradolaw.net. They've won over $1 billion for their clients over the 25 years they've been doing this in Colorado. So they're very good at getting you what you deserve. Check them out. Get hooked up. Get what you need. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast as we continue kind of just, roving around the league. AJ, on paper, best team in the league today.
Oh, no.
Carolina?
Oh, no.
Dallas? I don't think it's Vegas.
I feel like there's been a couple times where it's been Carolina and then they just don't really.
Yeah, that's why I said on paper.
Yeah, totally. Like they just don't do anything with it. It's like, okay, cool.
I think the 2 teams I really, really, really like right now as currently constructed. Obviously, they've got questions, whatever. We'll see how it goes. But I do really like Carolina and I really like New Jersey.
Sure.
Now, obviously, I'm not sold on the net minding in New Jersey.
Of course.
Like, we'll just have to see how it goes. But I think they've built a super good roster. And the Hurricanes have been great for years. They're still great. That does, can they get through the hurdles? That's always a question. You always need things to go a certain way. We've talked about their lack of kind of that alpha in a series, that guy that just takes the series by the reins and gets it done. It's a little shocking to me that they haven't had some random guy do it, because every single year we see, the Stars won a first round series last year while Jason Robertson ghosted.
Yep. It's true.
It's the weird things happen in small samples like that. And
I mean, a little bit cursed for them with the Svech injury, but
yeah, that's going to be The thing about his injury is the timeline of it. Like if he's available for the postseason, maybe he's got the fresh legs and
Sure.
he gets 82 games out, or however many games he actually ends up missing. Maybe he gets 65 games worth
Whatever, yeah.
of anger and frustration out in the postseason, and he has a 15-goal year or a 15-goal postseason and leads them to a cup win. Like I think Carolina's great. I think they're going to be less great come opening night because at least one of those defensemen is either getting traded or poached off waivers.
They can't have 8 of them.
And I think that the Devils are in such a good spot. The Devils, there's going to be a lot of hype on them this year. Obviously, I'm adding to that. It might be a year early because
I tend to think that, yeah.
Because a guy like that they're going to be putting in, relying on a lot, like a Luke Hughes, it just might be a year early. Like he could have a really good rookie year. Cale Makar had a really good rookie year. Look what happened to Cale Makar in year 2, though. He got way better.
Yeah.
And you could see the same thing with a guy like Luke Hughes, where he really starts, this rookie year. I'm comfortable with the idea that he's about to have a pretty strong rookie season. I'm also comfortable in saying that his year 2 is going to be better. I think Timo Meier, though, given an entire offseason,
should be ready to rock.
Yeah, and because again, deadline acquisitions, they can be tough, especially big ticket guys like that have a lot of hit and miss in them. And an entire offseason and then training and whatever. Timo Meier is very, very good. And I think that he, playing alongside Jack Hughes, could have a monster year.
I do think they feel a good bit like the 2019 Avalanche, to be honest with you. Particularly, you look at that defense for them that did go through a bit of restructuring this offseason, losing guys like Severson, Graves as well.
And Graves,
but I don't know if they're quite ready yet, but that doesn't take away from their talent level for sure.
And like, how does a young team mature? Because they had their first postseason experience last year. They learned, God, this is really hard.
Yep.
And so they learned that the hard way. But they also won a series their first time out. There was no "we're happy to be here." They went in and they won them a series against a pretty good Rangers team.
Yep.
So they're going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on, because I think we might unfortunately be back in that era where it's the Devils and Avs competing for cups every year. I really like the part where the Red Wings aren't part of this shit at all, though. I love that part.
Time is a flat circle.
Yeah, the Yzer plan can take another 5 years to come to fruition for all I care. That sounds great. But no, I would say those two teams really, really stand out. And then I do think I don't know that they're on that level on paper on day one, but I think come December, if the Avalanche are leading the league, I don't feel like it'll be a big surprise.
Yeah.
It just was. Their best players are among the best players the league has to offer. They've got 2 of the 10 best forwards in Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen. They've got the best defensemen. They've got 2 of the best 10 defensemen in Cale Makar and Devon Taves. They've got a top 10 goaltender in Alexander Georgiev. They've got a true second pairing guy that's proven in Sam Girard. And Sam Girard has owed some good luck after last year.
No kidding.
And owed some good luck, Bowen Byram. Owed a lot of good luck.
Yeah.
And I don't want to count Colorado out of this because a healthy Avalanche lineup is something that we never really saw last year.
Even a reasonably healthy lineup. The Avs won their division last year with stretches where it was Mikko Rantanen by himself, with stretches where it was just Rantanen and McKinnon, with stretches where it was they obviously the Landeskog thing, they never played their entire top 6 together, but they spent the majority of the season missing at least 2 top 6 guys, at times 3, 4, 5.
They lost game 7 of a first round series of a playoff series. They lost game 7 2-1 in a game they dominated.
Yep.
And they lost that 2-1 while missing if you go back and look at that lineup, like there's a decent chunk of it that's just not in the NHL anymore.
Yep.
You know, the Brad Hunt played 26 seconds at forward.
Which you'll never see again, I promise.
Dennis Malgin was in your top 6. Lars Eller is your kind of like your de facto 2C.
Yep.
Evan Rodriguez played like 23 minutes that night. Like, it was insane how beat up that hockey team was in that series. And I know that there are going to be the bottom line people in the world who are like, well, none of this matters. Everybody has injury issues. And like, yeah, sure. But there were some things that happened in that series. They did not lose that series straight up on talent alone.
No.
A lot of things comically went Seattle's way to get there. And this was still a team, despite all the 400 man games lost, despite all that. It just never got better. You look at two super injured teams in the regular season, Colorado and Vegas, win their division, accomplish an extremely rare feat of having more than 400 man games lost and still winning the division.
Yep.
And
one of them got healthy for the playoffs and one of them didn't.
One of them had the health luck turnaround in the postseason and one of them didn't.
And to be
fair, that's how life works, man.
Vegas did have goalie injury troubles, to be fair, but Adin Hill played out of his mind, so.
Yeah, exactly. Like it would have been the Adin Hill going off like that would have been like if Evan Rodriguez suddenly had was averaging 1.2 points per game during the postseason, right? Like like an absolute crazy pants. Like, what is happening right now? So it's it really, like, talking about the best teams in the league on paper, the Avalanche aren't on that aren't number one, but I don't think they're very far off because one of the things that we've talked about a lot on this pod is that elite players just are invaluable.
So
they do so much for your roster that
no doubt.
Is there a question about Colorado's third line right wing right now? Absolutely. Is there a question about what their third pairing in general is going to be? Totally. 100% fair questions, things that they have got to get figured out. Will it matter across an 82-game season if the roster is, for the most part, healthy? No.
And here's the thing for me. For the Avs to compete as the number one best team in the regular season, I look at their offseason moves, and I think they need to hit on at least two of them. I don't really count Miles Wood because I think his role is pretty established. He's going to be a third-line winger. I don't see a lot of vertical movement for him there. But you look at Drouin, Johansson, and Colton. If two of those three guys come into Colorado and are successful in doing what people think they're capable of, doesn't have to be Drouin doesn't have to have an 80-point season or something, but if he can have a 50 to 60-point year, if Colton can be the guy he was 2 years ago, push maybe even a 45-point season with 20 goals, if Johansson can continue to be the guy that gives you 55, 60-ish points, maybe more, playing with more talent, you get two of those three things, and I think you're probably throwing the Avs name around as best team in the league.
They absolutely cannot be wrong about both Johansson and Colton.
One of the centers has to work, yeah.
They have to be. They are spending $8 million on their second and third line centers, which is not like an exorbitant number for the record. It's a pretty normal number.
Weird,
but they
split
have to be right.
But yeah.
Right. And like if you look at Vegas, that split, they're spending about $8 million on theirs too, but $6 million of them are William Karlsson.
Yeah, and less than 3 is Stevenson.
Yeah, it's like 275, something like that.
Yeah.
So, like it's again, Colorado's spending on their middle six centers, normal. That's P.S. tomorrow's show.
Yeah.
But they can't be wrong about both of them.
Yeah.
Jonathan Drouin working out would be great. It would help, obviously, but it is a totally no risk gamble for them.
Yeah, for sure.
That they can, and like we've talked about this a lot, wings are not incredibly hard to find in season if they really needed to. The Avalanche have picks. They've got a couple of prospects that might be of interest to a team.
Yep.
they've got some options in terms of being able to solve those problems. It's always harder to solve center problems. Now, if Calgary is a bust this year, you have two of them with Lindholm and Backlund, where you're like, okay,
Sometimes things work out. Yeah.
maybe like a Mark Scheifele at a deadline.
Yeah.
Like there could be some help there, but you're talking about big ticket stuff there. All three of those guys would be pretty big tickety and expensive to get, but they could be very good. Whereas if they need wing help, a Jason Zucker, a Taylor Hall, something like that.
A lot easier to dig into one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I agree with you. Two of those have to hit.
Yep.
And I would also say that they really need the jump from Bowen Byram.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You'd love to see him become the team's bona fide number 3, if only because it makes the conversation with Tays a lot more pliable.
Yeah, I mean they nearly quadrupled his salary from last year.
Yep.
If you get quadruple the player,
if you get quadruple the player, the Avs are winning the cup. Because Cale Makar and Bowen Byram are both about to have 100-point seasons.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do think, again, I don't want to dig into every statistic here, but top 5 team for the Avs or more top 10?
I think right now I would just say top 10 because they do have such big question marks. Right now you would probably have confidence in there's some safety in some of the other teams that are going to be there. I think Carolina, New Jersey. I want to say Toronto as well because I don't think that the changes regular season wise are going to be that big of a deal. So I think Toronto is also probably ticketed for another 110-ish point season somewhere in there.
Yep.
So I think they would be on that list. I'm comfortable with Dallas being very good. So I'm at 4 right there. And then teams again that in a regular season I'm very comfortable with being good. Edmonton would be on that list. Vegas is probably on that list as well. Like they're going to be. I think they'll be better than last year. Like I don't want to. Either of the Florida teams I think are could have really strong seasons, but both of them have major issues that they have to get sorted out.
You do wonder who helps fill the void that Boston has left in the East for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's where Buffalo lurks. Is Boston has taken at the moment they've taken so many steps back from last year's team.
Yeah.
Like who's right now, assuming no Krejci, and Bergeron is already gone. Like,
what is their top 6 even?
Who's their 1C on opening night?
I don't know.
Like, is it Charlie Coyle? Is it Pavel Zacha? Going from Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci to those two guys?
That's a disaster, yeah. Not good. Not good for them.
Yeah, well, and then like your third line is a bunch of guys that might be fourth lines on other teams. Because it could end up being, AJ Greer and Trent Frederick and Morgan Geekie and Patrick Brown, Milan Lucic. Like, all of a sudden you're looking at that bottom 6 like,
Jake DeBrusk.
This is kind of stinky.
Had a good year, but is he really a top 6 guy? Like,
I mean, like, yes, I think so. He's a 25 goal guy, but you're going in like the drop off from David Pastrnak to everybody else because even Brad Marchand had a pretty significant slip last year,
and he's not getting any younger.
He's 35 years old, and so they're like I still think that they're probably a playoff team, but they're not going to get absolutely hilariously over the top otherworldly goaltending all season. And their forward core is so much worse than last year's.
Yeah.
And right now their third pairing is Derek Forbort and Kevin Shattenkirk.
Yikes. Might need some otherworldly goaltending with them out there.
Yeah, so I think I'm in wait and see mode on the Bruins. I'm afraid to say that because last year it was all about the injuries with me, but last year I was like, watch them. They're the team to watch. And then they have the greatest regular season ever. So there's always there's always the possibility that I'm just an idiot.
I mean, you never know.
But
that's why they play the games, because
that's
crazy stuff happens.
Yeah, and this is where Buffalo is like lurking. Like that's a really intriguing team that certainly thinks its defense is going to be better, but like the Kings, they're rolling the dice on very, very, very shaky goaltending situation with what is it? It's Eric Comrie, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and Devin Levi.
Yep. They're hoping someone breaks out, basically.
Yeah, they're hoping that Levi needs absolutely no like
settling in at all. Yeah.
Like easing into the job. He's ready for the thing from day one because Comrie and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen have not proven anything in the NHL.
I mean, I think Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen can get you by. I don't know about Comrie, but
I mean, he's been terrible in the NHL.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, we've been going for almost an hour. I think we're good on the show today. A fun one, kind of throwing it back to where we could just talk whatever in the middle of the off season. So it was good to have a chat.
I asked the chat who they thought would have the better season between Cale and Nate, and they pretty much agreed with you guys. Cale was at 60%, Nate's at 40%. So
that's a pretty decent split. It's not dominated either way. Okay. On that note, we are brought to you by Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR.
Oh.
You can get... Oh?
Yeah, Krejci retired 3 hours ago.
Oh, well, there you go.
Or yesterday. Okay. He officially retired, though. I mean, he was leaning that way, and they weren't planning for it. But
not a big surprise.
Yes. Shout out to the chat for informing me that official announcement did get made.
There you go.
I'm in kind of a social media blackout right now, so I'm,
Pour out a Mountain Beach Sour for Krejci's career then from Breck Brew. You can get it at your local liquor store. Use the Breck Beer Locator online to find it near you. And then this Friday, 6 p.m., we're doing a live show down in the bar. So you can come listen live, come say hi to Megan and I. We'll be hanging out afterward talking hockey with whoever's around. So if you want to come say hi, you want to come listen to a show, DNVR Bar this Friday. The place to do it, 6 p.m. Come vibe. I know we're having like a special Miko Rantanen and drink also. So you can come get a cool drink and some food and hang out with us. It should be a fun time. I'm looking forward to it. More people to talk hockey with, just like AJ and I did on the show. So anyway, we're going to get out of here for the day. We appreciate all y'all hanging out with us. We're back tomorrow, all three of us, Megan, AJ, Rudo. We're talking middle sixes. Going to do a little bit more numerical analysis, looking at value, things like that. So it should be a more organized show for the people who prefer that type of thing. So tune into that one. We appreciate you, and we will talk to you tomorrow.